Okay, so like I said, this is the last set of focusing on finding degrees. Either finding degrees of an arc or finding degrees of an angle. Next week, we're going to be focusing on finding how big a segment is, which is like completely different sets. Again, there's no specific name to these, so we're just going to start by drawing a circle. So draw yourself a circle. Now, as you can see from the problems kind of down below, what we have is we have an angle, so we're going to start someplace, go all the way through, come out the other side, and come back. And those are the problems that we're going to have today. So it's vertex outside, vertex outside. Now we're going to label a couple of things again. I've got two different arcs. And this time I have to actually know which one's which. So this guy will always be the bigger one. So this is big arc. This one kind of inside the angle is going to be little arc. And then, of course, the angle is the angle. So that's how we're going to label. Now, on Friday's worksheet, it didn't matter which one we did first. Because if you're adding, it doesn't matter if you take 60 plus 70 or 70 plus 60. You're just adding. But on these, you're subtracting. So you have to make sure they get put in the correct order. So it's going to be big arc first minus little arc. Divide by 2 equals angle. So very similar to the formula from Friday, but instead of adding the arcs, we are subtracting the arcs. We are subtracting. So that's our set. Still see a couple people writing. I actually ended up erasing everything because it was getting a little out of control on how much was writing all over the board. So everything got erased. We all good? All right, moving on. So let's take a look at some example problems. First one, as easy as they get. Big arc. What's my big arc? 135. Subtract little arc. 59. This guy here. Divide by 2. It's always divide by 2. Equals angle, which is what I don't know. You stick an X. That's your sum. Now this one's as easy as it gets because everything's on the left. So I just have to do the math. 135 subtract 59. Make sure you actually get the answer to this top. And I get 76. Then divide by 2. If you type everything in, the calculator thinks you're doing 135 subtract, and it's only 59 divided by 2 as opposed to all that divided by 2. So just be real careful. Divide by 2, we get 38. So my angle is 38 degrees. My angle is 38 degrees. Number 2 is still pretty easy, but a little bit trickier. What's my big arc? X. That's the X. That's what I don't know. So we're going to put an X here. So X minus little arc. What's the little arc? 80. Divide by 2 equals angle. And my angle is 60. There's my set. Now, same that we did on Friday. Yes, I could divide those two things by 2, but then I'm going to end up with like a 0.5x or a half x. It just gets messy. So my suggestion is to get rid of the 2 by multiplying both sides by 2. Same as we did Friday. That way the 2's cancel. X minus 80 equals 120. Then you can just add the 80. So x equaled 200. So my arc here, my great big arc here, ends up being 200. See a couple people writing. Amy, need more time on this one? 3 and 4. Now 3, just be really careful of the signs. Because what's the big arc? 175, this guy here. So 175 minus, I don't know the little arc. So that's the x. Divide by 2 equals angle 55. Now, a lot of times we don't see equations written that way, that have a number subtract the x. Normally the x is in front. So that's why I said just be really careful how you set this one up. Get rid of the 2, same as we did before. So if I multiply by 2, 175 minus x equals 110. Now I still want to get the x by itself, so I've got to move the 175. Now, there's nothing in front of the 175, so to move it, I've got to subtract. So subtract the 175. So minus x, still there. 110 minus 175 gives me negative 65. So just be really careful with those signs. Well, if negative x is negative 65, then positive x is positive 65. That's right? No. Okay. So x equals 65. So therefore, this little arc here was 65 degrees. And number 4 is basically the same setup. I just thought I needed to do it again because it was a little bit trickier. So big arc, 155, minus little arc that I don't know, divide by 2 equals angle. There's your setup. And your angle is 35. Again, multiply by that 2. So multiply 2 by both sides. So it's going to cancel it out on this one. 155 minus x equals, over here it becomes 70. Then I need to move the 155, and to move it I have to subtract because there's nothing in front of it, so it must be positive already. So to move it, I'm going to subtract. So negative x equals 70 subtract 155, negative 85. So x equals positive 85. That's your setup. So just be really careful anytime that the x is on that small arc. Just be really careful of those signs. Does anybody need more time on writing these two? Next two. Big arc. What's the big arc? 246. Minus little arc. What's the little arc? Subtract what? Say again? Yes. On the other ones that we had done, the ones up there, the angle kind of came up and shaved the edges off the circle. But this one, it comes up right at the edge. So all of this is 360. So if I take 360, subtract the 246 that I already knew, that means this arc here is going to be 114. And like I said, I only can do that because the angle comes up right to the edge of the circle. If it chops off any of the edges, it doesn't work that way. So 114 is my little arc. Divide by 2 equals angle, and angle is what I don't know. That's the x. Now it's the same as problem 1 because everything's on the left. So 246 subtract 114, I get 132. Divide by 2 equals x. When I divide, I get 66. Now 6 is basically the same thing. It's just I gave you the little one, you're finding the big arc. But you're still going to have to subtract. So since this guy here is 130, and I've got to find this one, I can take 360, subtract 130, and I get 230 for that big arc. And like I said, that only works if that angle comes right to the edge of the circle. If it chops off or shaves the circle, then it doesn't work that way. So big arc minus little arc. Big arc minus little arc. Divide by 2 equals angle. Angle is what I don't know. That's what I'm trying to find. Well, 230 subtract 130 is 100. So 100 divide by 2 equals x. So my missing number must be 50. So this guy is 50. You may need more time on those two. And the last couple of equation ones. I always throw some equations in here. So number 9.
Are you not doing 7?
Look, I am. I skipped too far down. Number 7. Number 7. Big arc. What's the big arc? 155. Minus little arc. What's the little arc? Right, and this is the tricky thing. Yes. Let me finish this one. The little arc is all of this expression. So I have to show that I'm subtracting all of that expression. So it has to go in a parenthesis. So I'm showing it subtracting all of that. Divide by 2 equals angle, which is also an expression, 3x plus 14. So that's the tricky thing is that the little arc is an expression. You've got to get it put in a parenthesis. It has to go in a parenthesis. Well, that's the first thing I want to do is get rid of the parentheses. So I'm going to distribute a negative. So the 155 doesn't change. Negative is going to change the 7 to negative 7x. Negative is going to change the positive 10 to negative 10. Now, everything else I'm just going to write again. So you had to make sure you distributed that negative. Well, same as on Friday, I can clean up that top. So 155, subtract 10 is 145. Minus 7x I didn't do anything with. I can get rid of the 2 kind of at the same time. So I'm going to multiply both sides by 2. So that means I'm going to have to distribute a 2 over there. So I get 6x plus 28. So there's just a lot of places that you might make a mistake on these. You got to be really careful. Well, now it looks like an equation that isn't too bad of shape. I moved the 7x just to get rid of that negative. So add 7x. 145 equals 6 plus 7 is 13x plus 28. Well, since I moved the x to the right, I've got to move the 28 to the left. So subtract 28. So 145 subtract 28, I get 117 equals 13x. And then when I divide by 13, I get my final answer is 9. So x equaled 9. And that was my final answer. So these equation ones, just be really careful because there's a lot of places that you might mess up. They're definitely the trickier of the equations. Questions on 7. Slide to number 8. Same basic idea. Big arc minus little arc, got to get that in a parenthesis. Divide by 2 equals angle 2x plus 19. So everything up here had a variable to it. There's variables all over the place. Well, again, I would get rid of the negative in a parenthesis to distribute that negative out. Minus 5x minus the positive makes it a minus 6. Now you can clean up the top. 14x minus 5x is 9x. Minus 6 is minus 12. And at the same time, you can move that 2. And I get 4x plus 38. Actually, turns out the 2 on the back are a little bit easier than the 2 I showed. Let's get the x's together. I would move the 4x. (5x) minus 12 equals 38. Now move the minus 12 by adding 12. (5x equals 50. So finally I had x equals 10. So that was my final answer. The back has 10 questions. The first 8 are just numbers. They're just numbers. The last 2 are more of an equation. Like I said, I'm going to